Happy New Year, everybody. It is January 1st, 2022, and this is a new episode of Friends Talking Nerdy. This is Tim Jousman. Joining me, I have the greatest legal mind of the Pacific Northwest, Professor Aubrey.
Hi, everybody.
And all the way in Portland, Maine, it is the holiest of holies, the Reverend Tracy.
Happy New Year. I'm excited.
Yes, yeah. I mean, the 2021 was slightly better in some ways than 2020 in terms of overall things for the country and all that stuff. But I hope 2022 ends up being a lot better than what 2021 was.
I think no way it can't be. I honestly, like, 2021 was the doldrum. I think we'll look back and we'll say it was kind of exciting when all that pandemic stuff first started happening. For the first year, it was like interesting to watch myself figure out how to live. I figured all that out in 2021. I just did it, and it was pretty fucking boring. So I think we'll look back at 2021 as sort of the doldrums, and that 2022, we're going to really figure out how to have fun in the new world. And that's going to be great. Like, we're going to figure out how to see each other and how to be in the same place and like feel okay about it. I think it's going to be good.
It'll be like American Gladiators, those big rolling ball things. I don't know.
Or everybody carry around that stick and say, you must be this far apart from me. I don't know.
See, I always like New Year time anyway, because out of the holidays, this is the one I've traditionally been able to get excited about, because there's always a cluster of people who are excited about new beginnings. So even as unexcited or scared people were like this time last year, because of it just felt like a lot of unknown. We were still, especially then, at the peak of like the flu season, which was making things so much worse. It's just it's nicer. Like, people seem to be more ready to get out there. I think that's because now everybody's vaccinated, we have boosters, and there is a level of comfort if you follow the science and follow some of the articles on it. If you've had your shots, you're less likely to get so sick that you end up in the hospital. Things like that kind of makes people more comfortable with being around. And so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, myself included. And speaking of resolutions, I think that's a great segue into talking about last year's episode. I think it was episode 132, The Mandalorian, where we talked about, the Reverend and I talked about our resolutions for 2021. And I thought it would be interesting to go through that list to see what worked, what didn't, and go from there.
Yes, and I just realized I should probably have that in front of me. I know you pasted it to me the other day.
Yeah, it is under my show notes on Trello.
I found them.
Yeah.
Look at you guys with your
nailing it. We're like so professional and stuff sometimes.
Yes, super organized and all that. But
super organized. I'm not killing time while I actually go over to Trello.
I didn't make any resolutions last year, so maybe I should just say something before you guys get started. And that is that it's okay to not have resolutions. It's also okay to have resolutions and not meet them, like everybody does.
Yeah.
And I think the fun of resolutions is just that it's all like a little time capsule of what you were thinking about and where you were at this time last year. It's just like a marker in the calendar for me. So I and look forward to hearing how it went with you guys last year.
Well, what's funny is from what I recall, this came after a conversation where I had brought up like resolutions normally fail and why they normally fail.
Right.
So we thought it was funny when we realized that, oh yeah, we had made these resolutions on the show and I had totally forgotten about them. So I didn't even know what they were. And I was like, oh, this is great. We're going to see if I naturally stumbled through the things that I said I wanted to do.
Well, speaking of that, what was number one on your list?
So number one on my list was to summit Mount Hood to renew our vows with the Mr. Reverend. For those that didn't know, I was a COVID bride in my front yard. Our plans got canceled like many people across the country in this situation. But we had intended on getting married at the summit of Mount Hood with just us two, our friend who was going to officiate, and then there were two people who were already climbers, like they knew how to go up there.
Mhm.
So COVID canceled all of that. And we never really got the chance to train again, so that did not happen. Blah, 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 meow. So right off the gate, that one didn't happen. But I don't feel bad about it because it's totally reasonable that it didn't happen.
You know what could be really cool too?
Hmm.
Is to do Katahdin in Maine and then do Mount Hood when you come back. And then you would have done the biggest peak in Oregon and Maine.
And is it like the biggest peak in Maine, like one of the smallest in the country, though? Like,
you can drive right to the top of it.
No, that's Mount Washington, right? I see the bumper stickers. It's like this car is hiked to the top of Mount Washington. So I'm like, oh, so we could just like hop out and be like, we're here.
But I think Katahdin is actually, I mean, it's kind of a cool mountain because it's the end of the Appalachian Trail. So lots of people have to climb it to end their through hikes. And
Yeah, that 5-year-old that did the through hike before the summer, he summited Katahdin because that was part of it.
yeah,
So
that's part of it.
so yeah, maybe that'll go that way. I mean, we still plan on doing it though. Like we both talk about it. We still plan on training. That's part of why we try to stay fit and shit. Is we want to be able to do that, and we don't really have the same like elevation on this side to train on. So a lot of it's gonna have to come with training and then being ready. But we do totally plan on it. Not this Christmas break while I'll be there. Definitely not.
Yeah, more important things than yeah, you're gonna say something.
I was just going to say, and then I'll let you guys actually do your episode and stop saying something all the time. But it's interesting with the change in weather occasioned by global warming that the season for Mount Hood climbing is sort of shifting because it used to be that you could go in the middle of summer and do it at night and it was very stable, but now it was very unstable at the usual time, and there were actually quite a few emergencies that happened. And so I think people are like pushing it in either direction to try and get more stable ice to climb.
Right. And then Mount Hood also has the Bergschrund,
Right.
which is that very, very large hole, the crevasse, the Bergschrund, the crevasse that's under there. And that wasn't there like a very famous helicopter crash like around trying to rescue somebody from there once? So it is, I can't emphasize enough for anybody who does mountaineering, like it is a dangerous sport. Like the sport that I do is not the safest thing. Now there's things you can do and it is perfectly fine if you are trained and know what you're doing, but like many things, right? But yeah, that's a very real sport, and that Mount Hood especially has a window that it is just not safe to do. And then there's this other area that it feels like you're going in the right area, but if you follow it, you end up in like this basically death trap, and it's almost impossible to get them out of there sometimes. So yeah, it's a bear of a mountain, but it's so beautiful. We got close to the top like while we were training. So I've been close, but the time that we tried it, my legs were just wiped. So we wound up like turning back at like one point. But I'm excited and I do want to do it still at some point.
Nice.
What was your first one?
Yeah, I know. I was
Yeah,
excited for my number one, and that was go to the movies. And as evidenced by multiple episodes of Friends Talking Nerdy this year, that happened multiple times, and I was so happy.
It was super fun. I bet you know each movie you went to see this year.
Most of them, yeah. I mean, we saw The Wizard of Oz, we saw Smokey and the Bandit, Fargo, No Time to Die, Black Widow, that Together, and I think that's it. About 6 movies.
Nice. I have seen 0 movies and I'm totally fine with it. Well, I mean, at home I have, but I've not movie theaters. But I didn't really like them in the before times that much either. Very rarely I'd go.
I mean, I've always loved movie theaters. I mean, I remember as a kid, the first movie I ever saw in theaters was like E.T. So, 82 when it first came out on the big screen. I mean, that's an amazing thing for a kindergartner to be able to see. And just, when you got a great movie that's capturing the people's audience, that's capturing the audience and just, bringing them in, there's nothing like that feeling, so I'm glad I got to go back this year. What's your next one?
So number 2 for me was to go to the Haunters convention. So it was virtual this year. And
Mhm.
I didn't get to go to the classes like per se, but I did get to attend the charity ball online where I got to do self SFX on myself. And then I also got to do SFX on my stepdaughter. And I had given her my old, like one of my ringmaster jackets because I had purchased one during the sale one year. So I had an extra ringmaster jacket. She kind of liked doing that look. So I'd given it to her. So she was able to bring it. We dolled ourselves up and like went to this little virtual party. It was super fun. Danced to a whole bunch of classic stuff. And because people could see us too, there were a lot of comments on the matching ringmasters, and of course there's like a lot of mom and daughter comments, but like
Mhm.
we just giggle at those. We don't bother correcting people. But it was just really, really sweet and really fun. So in a way, I'm gonna call that one a half win because I still kind of got to do an element of it, but I did not technically go to the whole event.
But I would still consider it very much a win because of the fact that a lot of these places are having virtual aspects to their presentation. And not many people, when you have like a convention like this, whether it's a Comic Con, the Haunters convention, are necessarily going to be there for the entirety. Most people are there for maybe a day, maybe two, for short periods. So, in my opinion, you very much attended.
Whoop whoop. What about your number two?
My number two was go to Rose City Comic Con, and as evidence in the
Yes.
episode of the show, we know how well that went.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I actually listened to the Rose City Comic Con episode. When was Comic Con this year?
It was its usual time at the Oregon Convention Center in September, and part of my reaction, admittedly, was just anxiety due to the huge amount of crowds that they had in there, but it was not well done at all. And again,
Yeah.
as evidence in that episode, and I thank to address something I said in that episode about people getting sick. Hindsight being 2020, I did not hear of any major outbreaks at Rose City Comic Con, so there is that. However, there are other conventions in the country to where, like, I guess in New York, there was an anime convention that occurred, and a guy ended up having COVID, and I guess 19 people ended up getting sick.
Mm,
So it's yeah. I mean, what I learned is that until things get a little more a little more straightened out, events with people that size, no.
yeah. I hope it does. I was actually reading on it. I think it was maybe last night, but these are the kind of black holes my brain goes down sometimes. But I was just curious, and I wound up reading about essentially how there was a lot of resistance to the smallpox vaccine as well, and polio even to a point. And then, my favorite is how hard people resisted something like seatbelts. Um, so, but at the same time, we did get those under control. Like, this isn't, I basically looked it up, and there are some people who have even also well-written explanation in articles saying this isn't new. Like, we've had a history of resisting these things, and we have still beaten them. So I have all the reason in the world to hope that we are going to get to a point where we feel comfortable in crowds again. I
Yeah.
mean, there might be some people who wear masks, and that's not a reflection on people who aren't at that point, especially when the pandemic is over or when the pandemic is over. So I don't know, like I kind of don't hate masks. I've heard a lot of people say that at this point they've bought fun ones and might still find reasons to use them like that, because why not? They've enjoyed not having the cold or the flu. That was a weird bright side. Like, I have not really gotten the cold,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't get the flu. So I don't know. I'm very hopeful. If not this year, maybe by next year things will kind of
I
get to that
mean,
point again.
I guess in Japan, I mean, Japan, the reason they do wear masks all the time there is because they had a similar type of situation there, and the country learned it just makes more sense to have that mask on. So I'm at this point, I know I'm gonna have a mask with me till the day I die.
Exactly. And that's what's funny is the only reason it didn't get to the point of like how COVID has been right now is because there was just not as much travel back then.
Mm-hmm.
Like, people weren't as going across the country and
Or the world.
yeah, across the world. Sorry. Yeah, I stopped myself. I was like, yeah, that's the thing, is continents. Like, people travel more than when that is it an epidemic when it's like because there's like basically there's differences in some of the terms, and I'm super like
Yeah.
iffy on them. But anyway, the reason it didn't become like the COVID pandemic is because there were just less humans traveling from continent to continent as often as we do now. So
Yeah.
unfortunate timing and everything is what's caused this to be what it is, but I'm still hopeful.
There we go. What is your third one?
Actually kind of ties into this because my third one was also, I guess, go to Comic-Con at one point I put on there.
Yeah, because I
Um,
know I know it's like you didn't officially announce it on the show as of yet, but that was right around the time where you knew that you were going to make the move. So you made it clear that it wasn't necessarily Rose City, but it could be one in May.
right. And it absolutely did not happen. This is one that just didn't happen. The haunted house I also wasn't expecting to do the haunted house this year, was kind of part of it. And because September, and I have no idea when the one was here, I was still trying to get settled because I just got here in July. So that one was an absolute didn't happen. And I'm okay that it didn't happen because there were other things that happened that were pretty great so far. So
And I know you all already have some medical issues that make you more susceptible to something like COVID. So the bigger crowds this year probably would not be something you'd want to go to anyway.
exactly. And especially when I found out I was going to be doing the haunt, because I did not know that at this point.
Mhm.
When we did this list last year, because that didn't happen. I didn't learn about that pretty much till right before we moved,
Mhm.
because I had fully expected to not be doing it. And that was where I was like, okay, yeah, I'll go to Comic-Con. And, that goes into the next on my list, which we'll get to.
Yeah.
So yeah, didn't happen. Totally fine with it not happening. Understandable that it didn't happen.
Yeah.
What about you? You're number 4 now.
Um,
Oh, wait,
that's
no, sorry.
my number three. My number
Number
three.
3.
Yeah, this one's
I
funny.
can count.
Yeah, the Texas public education system at work, folks. Hey, no, joke. My
But
number, yeah, my number 3 is not being upset about people ignoring the pandemic and common sense. Again, that's evidence on every single episode of the show since then that nothing has changed. It's probably gotten worse.
It's kind of understandable. You know what I mean? Like, it really is kind of a recipe for becoming a trigger.
Mhm.
And it makes sense because, anybody that kind of can think about it for a second, like, well, what creates a trigger? Well, a trigger is basically something that puts you into a state where you fear, whether it be reasonable or not, at some level for your life. So when you see somebody doing things that you feel are putting you in danger, then it kind of makes sense that it would kind of be something that would upset people.
Mhm.
I totally understand that from that side. It's the other side that I don't understand. It's the people who get upset because somebody else is wearing a mask that I don't quite understand. Like, I don't understand why that is a quote unquote trigger for them, because it's like, what about this do you really think is putting your life in danger? Like,
Yeah, I mean, okay.
but anyway, that to say, like, I think it's totally understandable that anybody would still be really upset, like, at seeing people not taking it seriously, especially if you do know anybody that's been sick with it or has passed from it. I could see it being very upsetting for a lot of people. It's an understandable one.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, again, more for a therapist. What's your next one?
Well, hey, at least you say that and don't mean it like an insulting way for yourself. So good for you.
Yeah.
My number 4, and as I kind of mentioned, it had to do closely related to the Comic-Con. It was celebrating Halloween. At this point, yes, we were kind of already thinking that we were going to end up moving to Maine. It seemed like it was a very strong possibility. It just wasn't set in stone yet.
Mhm.
And with that, I was really excited about the idea of possibly going to Salem, Massachusetts for Halloween, because I've heard it's like their Christmas, they go all out. It's nuts. It's super fun. And even with COVID, I figured a lot of the stuff is outside. I can do something creative with a mask, but I never looked into it because I wound up doing the haunt.
Salem, Massachusetts. Hey, remember that time we killed a bunch of ladies, called them witches? Come celebrate with us.
I know, but it's just because it's the creepy town, because they do consider that now like such a horrible thing they did to people.
Mhm.
It draws that hauntedness to it. Like, if you do watch any haunt stuff, like the actual haunted stuff, not like the haunted house, like boo shit that I do, but the legit like ghosts and people who follow those things. Like there are stories with Salem, and that whole area, and a lot of it is around like how many were killed that were accused of witchcraft, that now when they really unpack it and like the reasons they were accusing people of stuff, like not legit. Like they probably just murdered a bunch of people for no reason is really what happened. So when you have something that's that much of a catastrophe that's so fucking sad, it just leads into it being a place. And so some people even go there because they want to pay respects to this bad thing that happened. And they think, you know, going on that the Day of the Dead, because there's also something very much with the veil between the living and the dead is like at its thinnest. There's those reasons too. Like there's other reasons for that date being Halloween. So there's a lot of draw to Salem. So that was what I meant. Like it seemed like it draws all sorts of types. Like either people that are like the trick or treat Halloween nuts because it's Salem and the witches were here, to the people who like take that realm very seriously, and because of the things that happened there, it's more likely to like be a strong place, from what I understand of people who believe in ghosts believe. Gotcha. But I still count it as a win because I'll take hanging out with my haunted house family for 5 weeks, as I got to celebrate Halloween. I did. I even got to play in the kids event more than I normally would, because I got to go be a character on one of the days. And that's more than I got to do when I actually ran my own kids event for the haunt. So I'm totally counting it as a win that I got to celebrate Halloween all month.
Nice.
What about you? Your next one?
My next one was watch pro wrestling live. And if Comic-Con didn't work out for me, watching pro wrestling live isn't going to work either.
Oh, did you? But did you try though, is the point? Did you go?
No, there have been a couple of local Portland independent wrestling companies that have had some events, and you know, like I like wrestling, but not like I have to know a person that's a character that's there already, you know, just a bunch of people that I don't know. I'm sure I'd enjoy it, but you know, and none of the big companies have come back to Portland yet. And I think the earliest the WWE, for example, is expected to be back in Portland is their usual February time. They're apparently scheduled to have an episode of Raw taped at the Moda Center, but I'm not going to the Moda Center, you know. I mean, and with crowds that big, even with, you know, it's too dangerous at this point, in my opinion, for me to be comfortable going. Yeah.
I mean, I haven't read anything on stadium safety in general. I know I was reading more on airports and traveling by air because I knew I was going to have to mentally prepare myself for that. And I could see possibly going to a stadium type assigned seat event more than I would like a Comic-Con right now.
What?
Because, sorry, just real quick, because like part of the stuff where they say that they've like mostly assume why people aren't getting like these mega events on flights, right? Because that's the whole thing, is like, oh, you know, when we're in the airport, there's all this strictness, but then when you're on the plane, it's like everybody's still just sitting there, but they've got their masks on. But part of it is you're just inherently facing one direction. And because everybody's still mostly wearing them, even if you got the one with a little bit under their nose, like it's not going to be moving as much. And because of just how circulation works was another factor too. So I would be curious, like how dangerous it is, like if you're fully vaccinated and boosted.
Well, I mean, there are plenty of pro sports here. There's a Three Stooges thing going on behind the computer.
Is it the squirrel or the cat, or
no, just stuff everywhere. But there have been numerous sporting events that have happened over the past year that have involved audiences. I've not heard of any sort of like massive outbreaks, so maybe dangerous is probably too hyperbolic. I'll acknowledge that, but still, with people packed that tight, and it's also too, I mean, I've been to the Moda Center and I've sat in their seats, and being 6'5", trying to sit in those seats is not comfortable at all. You know, like I'm all over the place, touching people unintentionally, and it's just, yeah. So it's more my comfort level. I'm not comfortable with it.
Oh yeah, and that's totally fine. My brain went to, I don't want anybody to think like that things are dangerous necessarily if we don't know that they are. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I totally am not saying like, hey, go to all the concerts and things. I have no clue. I haven't been to one. If I was thinking about buying tickets, I'd probably look into it more. I'm sure the information's out there, but the air travel one seems to kind of make sense. So I could see it. And I guess that's just my logic is I would rather do something like that than go to like a open, like roaming type thing that is Comic-Con. And that's just because of what I have read about situations of like why it transmits under some situations and why not others. That, yeah, more likely. But I just kind of don't blame you though, like for not wanting to go out and be around a bunch of people.
Yeah. All right. What is your last one?
So my last one is something I've never really done. Well, I've done one time ever, and I've still only done it one time ever, is perform karaoke. So I haven't done it unless I randomly stumble across karaoke between now and New Year's, because we're recording this a little bit ahead of time. I don't see it happening in 2021. I technically have some time, sure. But what is funny is I may start hosting karaoke somewhere. At the VFW wants to do it. So they've talked to me about possibly being the person that hosts karaoke. So I might help bring it back, which is kind of fun. But will it have happened in 2021? Technically, no. So that is a Reverend Tracy's womp womp. Did not do karaoke. Not really anticipating a situation where I'm going to do karaoke. Unless there's karaoke at the airport and there's a layover. But I don't think they do that because, I think people would sue or something. I don't know. There's some pretty bad karaoke singers.
Yeah. I mean, myself included, depending on the song.
I love some of them though. Like, and I feel bad because I feel like some people listen to the bad karaoke people to make fun of them, but I love it. I don't know why. They just look so happy. Like, there's the guy, I'll have to look up the video, but he's not American. He's from somewhere else. And so it's like he's saying the American words as best as he can, but he's not doing it right. And it's like, it's like saying stuff like llama up a hill. And that's not even close to what the words are, but you kind of see where they came from. Anywho, karaoke is a fun one. It's one of those things that people can connect over to, as far as entertainment goes, because I don't drink. So there's not like a lot of stuff that people want to go out and do like as adults that's not for some reason like going to the bar and having some drinks. But if there's a karaoke night, that's one of those things that I can do and it not be as awkward that I'm not drinking alcohol or something like that.
Right. Indeed. I mean, I think the last time I did karaoke seriously was in my 20s. And yeah, the thing is, you don't sing well after 7 Boilermakers. Let's put it that way.
I have had such karaoke like craving lately, though, so I'm ready to do this. But yeah, karaoke and trivia, I think, are the two things that are like kind of those fun things to do. And I've done trivia a lot. I have not done karaoke though, so I'm still gonna try to do it. Mostly like they're not open here. There's a few places that are doing karaoke, but when I ask about those places, I'm told you don't want to do karaoke there. So, and that being said, there's only a handful. So I haven't looked extensively, but hopefully soon. But now we finally get to Tim's final resolution.
Yeah, that one was be more physically active, get outside, exercise, and do yoga.
How did that go for you, Tim?
Not as well. Having said that, for me, I definitely have increased my physical output, but that's also not seeing that much. Did I continue on with the yoga? Unfortunately not. But having said that, I think this year has been the year where I have focused on my health a little bit more than I have in the past. And, I've definitely have made some changes. I'm down to 223, my goodness.
Oh, like, I mean, I don't know what you were from or what your goal is, but I'm always excited to hear people say like, yay.
Yeah. Well, no, I normally, like when you met me, I would average about 240. So I'm down like 20 pounds from there. And now like the professor, like it was like one day it was just like, you've lost a lot of weight. I'm like, what? Do I got cancer? No.
Yeah, Yeah, I have all the smart scale stuff, and we're trying to be better about like weighing ourselves because we're very health metric people, the Mr. Reverend and I. And yeah, I know I need to like get better about some of that stuff because I mean I was doing really great too because of the running and things, but it's again it gets difficult because I'm not sure what your plan was, but it is easier to do things like yoga with that social element of being able to go to a class. And
Mm.
sometimes working out, especially if you're new to it, it can be better if like you can go to a place like say a Planet Fitness where they've got little circuits where you could just kind of you don't need to know anything, just do the fucking machines in the row that it tells you to do them. It's super easy. There's an
Mm.
arms area. Like I love places like that. So I could see with the hesitancy, especially in a situation where people are more milling about, not really wanting to look into like all of the things that could normally be at your disposal to help you do this goal.
Yeah. Indeed, but that was our resolutions. I got 2 out of 5, so we're looking at 40% there. How many did you get again?
Let's see. I got one, two. I got 2 out of 5.
So 40% for both of us, I think, is pretty okay. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, for a year the pandemic still continued to linger on, and considering like vaccines didn't happen until like the first shots were mine were 4 months after this, at that point.
Mhm.
So we didn't even have like a vaccine in sight at that point. We weren't quite sure when it was going to happen. So I think getting anything done was a good thing in a year with so much unknowns when they were being set.
Yeah. Oh, and that's another thing. Speaking of trivia, I forgot to mention. I know the professor has signed us up for a trivia night at a place as well. Apparently, I'm her ringer.
Oh, good. I am that person in the trivia team, by the way, that knows just the most random shit and will just win it those things. So it's like now more people know who invented the scissors and stuff like that, but that's like an example of some stupid nonsense that I know. Or like, hey, what were Cinderella's slippers originally made out of? Well, they were made out of fur. I know weird crap like that, but I can't tell you
That
anything
makes
about
more
history.
sense. Fur
It was
makes
worth more.
sense.
It was worth a lot. That's why. Like I remember because I loved Cinderella. So when I learned like the original shoes were made of fur, I was like, what?
Why didn't they say fur?
Right? Like so they changed it to make it more elegant. Whoa, what are you saying? No? You
More
think fur is
elegant,
more elegant?
over more practical, more warm, more useful.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe I was saying something wrong. You're just disagreeing with the sentiment that elegant was the way to go. They should have been practical and warm, like a good pair of fairy godmother shoes would be.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, I've often thought about the fact that who would want to wear glass slippers? Like there's something very unyielding about that and about the Cinderella story.
Yeah, that's kind of an interesting story, especially if you read the Grimm version. But
Yes.
Yeah. Well, Spotify has a great feature for subscribers to their service. They kind of keep, they know what you're listening to on a daily basis, obviously. And what they do at the end of the year is they put together a little playlist for you with your top 100 songs played throughout the year. So what I thought we would do on New Year's Day is talk about our top 5 songs on our top songs list this year, including some honorable mentions. Like we normally do for a playlist episode, we'll go around in circles, in a circle, going over each choice. And each of these songs, obviously, we played them multiple times, which is why they're on this list. So they should have some sort of a story that we can tell. And then, when we are done, of course, like we normally do with a playlist episode, we're going to collect all these songs together and put them in one master playlist for you, the audience, to enjoy.
That sounds great.
yes, I'm excited to go through this list together.
All right. So again, we will go around here. We will start with the number 5 choice and then go up from there. Did you want to start, Professor? I know you were super excited over here. Wanted to play it.
I was super excited. So there have been some changes lately to Shay. What are we going to call our house?
I don't.
we'll come up with a name for our new house, but Friends Talking Nerdy Studios has moved, and we're in a new location. And so anyway, I dropped some stuff and pressed some wrong buttons, and Tim's making fun of me.
Oh no.
Way.
So I'm going to tell you my number 5 song for the year 2021. And this is one of my favorite songs ever. And I hope that everybody goes and listens to it. That is a collaboration between 2 singer-songwriters named John Craigie and Gregory Alan Isakov. And they are doing, it's a version of I Am California, a song that was written by John Craigie, who I just had the thrill of seeing for 2 nights in residence at the Aladdin Theater in Portland, Oregon.
Ooh.
It's a really great song about California. So if you've been to California, or you love California, or you've lived in California, it's a fun one to listen to, especially if you liked it. Now, if you hated California, you probably won't like this song.
I hated California.
You hated California.
Oh God.
Well, you were in Sacramento, not in the most beautiful place in California.
What happens in Sacramento? Anyway.
It's just inland and hot and dusty. And
all right, Reverend, what is your number 5?
So my number 5 is actually one of my favorite running jams. So this obviously came up because I've been running a lot. So it's probably been the first one I'll play and like be like, yeah, do a playlist off of this and then play this one first and then the rest on shuffle. So at least I understand why it floated to the top, but Feel It Still, the Portugal and the Man. But I just really like that one. The ooh, I'm a rebel just for kicks. Yeah, like it's just a really good tempo to run to, and it helps me not like go too fast, because my problem is when I run sometimes I like go right out the gate, and it's something that you really don't want to do when you're trying to run like a longer distance, say a 5K or an 8K or a 10K, which is what I'm training for. So it's my favorite song to run to because it's just that perfect pace and it's fun. And for some reason it makes me think of my stepdaughter too, because we like had this whole thing where we would sing it together sometimes because she was really into this one for a second. So all sorts of good fun memories with that one, and I'm happy it wound up on there. It's a nice little fun song to listen to, even if you're not a runner.
Nice. Now, my number 5 is a musician I've heard since I was a kid. He was the narrator and provided the music on a television show that I enjoyed, and was probably the one artist that probably still kept a little ember of interest in country music going for me. He's from Texas, doesn't have as much musical heritage in Texas as Bowling for Soup, but it's Waylon Jennings. Luckenbach, Texas, Back to the Basics of Love. It's a ballad that he did with Willie Nelson. That's just one hell of a good song. And just Willie and Waylon together, or separately, just some of my absolute favorite artists. I mean, and what I like about Waylon too is that he very much embodied what I like in a musician, in terms of when he liked music that may not necessarily be country, he still did it. I mean, he ended up doing some covers of Fleetwood Mac songs that Stevie Nicks sang and did a damn good job at them. But Luckenbach, Texas, really good song, like a classic country, like crying your beer type of song. Is really good.
Awesome. Excuse me.
What is your next one?
My number 4 song. And so then we get into what is a new thing for me, which is a new style of music that I was not into probably before 2021, which is electronic dance music. And yeah, I mean, the thing about dance music is I got really into it and just started listening to it all the time. And I had my favorite songs and I just listened to them all the time. So that's what I will do with new music. I just listen to it constantly until I'm so sick of it that then it can join the regular rotation. So that was my new thing this year, was EDM. So the remaining 4 songs on my list are electronic dance music songs. And I, for the audience, enjoy that interlude. Maybe they could all be put together on the playlist, so at least they would It would be like a block. Anyway, number 4, When I Get There by Big Wild. Now, nobody's going to know that song because I'm not playing it. Nobody's going to know that song because it is like a fairly not well-known band, but it's a cool song, and Big Wild is cool. So look up Big Wild and listen to When I Get There.
Yeah, I mean, we go out I think we go out of our way to support artists of any type. So just because they're not on MTV or anything like that, yeah, by all means, give them the support.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
All right, what's your number 4, Reverend?
So speaking of artists that almost nobody's heard of unless you listen to the one time that I brought an album up of the music that I kind of like, and we did our best talking through it because it's in another language. It is Bam Bam by Johnny M. And I know exactly why this song comes up. I have a playlist of Johnny M music, and I love listening to Esperanto reggae when I cook. I know that is probably the weirdest fucking sentence I have ever said in my life, but that is what I like to listen to when I cook. And that goes right back to some stepmom memories. So Bam Bam, one of the lyrics is veganai ne la manjas ne la bestoin, or yeah, something like that. Veganoi manjas ne la bestoin. And what that means is vegans don't eat meat. So it is a actual song about how he is vegan, and it's cute because my stepson used to sing it. Like, he actually knew the words in Esperanto, but he didn't know all of it, what it meant. He just had it memorized. So I've actually got a video of him somewhere singing "I chicky 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 bam bam."
Yeah, you mentioned it on episode 100.
Oh, wow. See, that's how good Tim is with that stuff. I don't know when I say shit, but Tim does.
This is why he's the trivia ringer. It's a very good demonstration that he remembers everything that has ever gone into his brain.
But
I'm so shit with numbers.
Yeah, the problem with that, though, is that there's a character in Family Guy called Buzz Killington, and I always feel like Buzz Killington because did you know that nobody cares.
Like, nobody cares the first time she talked about Esperanto.
What's funny is that the other day, like literally 2 days ago, I was in the car and there was a reggae song that came on, and I was like, wait, that's Esperanto. Wait, that's Johnny M, because I have it on my phone because we did the review of it.
See, I like him. I still think he's adorable. That still needs to be a goal for me to learn Esperanto. So like, we can actually see if he wants to be on the show. But I think he does speak English, right? Because didn't he reach out to you? Yeah. Or we wound up talking or somewhat.
Yeah, he sent a very nice letter. And yeah, so like, once you do learn a little more, we can always reach out and see if he wants to be on the show.
Yeah, because then we could like banter back and forth a few sentences. It's just so long enough so it doesn't get boring. Like, for anybody,
sit there like, yeah.
Yeah. It's like, we'll just talk shit about Tim. No, I don't do that. That would be horrible. So what's your next one?
My next one, number 4, the King of Cool, Dean Martin, King of the Road. It is a cover of a Roger Miller country song, and it's the King of the Road. It's a story about a hobo, but the way Dean sings it makes it feel like the most cool life in the world. And how he sings it as well, the range of the voice, it's like one of those few songs that I can actually sing along with and not sound like I'm strangling a cat. So and a lot of times too, and this will be a common theme through some of these songs, like when I go out with my anxiety issues being what they are, I like having music on, and sometimes certain types of music can put me into a certain type of mood. So why not try to emulate the King of Cool, Dean Martin, when you are frightened on the inside to step outside? So that's probably another reason why I listen to that, but really damn good song. Go ahead.
Nerdy side note for you, there have been studies that prove that actually does affect like your mentality. Like the words that are said in the song actually do matter, not just the beat. So when you find something that has good words that you like the beat to, you should add that to a playlist. Sorry, I hate saying like you should do something. If you are somebody who's interested in using this like kind of brain hack, and if you deal with anxiety and depression, you can build a playlist like that. So just if you're aware of the words of it. So it totally makes sense that it does work. It makes you feel good.
Mhm.
And I did the same thing. That's so funny. Whenever I first started playing Ingress in downtown Portland,
Mhm.
I would get really anxious because it was the first time I really lived and worked in a city. So I would listen to Assassin's Creed music because I was playing a game. So it triggered that part of my brain that went back to playing games. And it made me focus more on that and not as much like I still look for traffic and things like that, but I was playing a game now. I
Mhm.
wasn't in a city. So it was kind of interesting, like the different ways you can use music to kind of hack your brain.
Exactly.
Totally.
Professor, what is your number three?
So number three, as I mentioned, these are all going to be EDM. This is you. This is You and Me by it's the Flume remix, and so there are a number of bands involved here, including Disclosure, Eliza Doolittle, and Flume. And Flume is really cool. And this song is, I really, really like this song a lot. So give that one a listen if you get a chance. That's You and Me, the Flume remix by Disclosure, Eliza Doolittle, and Flume.
How did you come across that song?
It was in a playlist. So I have found with Spotify that the way that I'm able to access new music or be exposed to new music is listening to other people's playlists. So Spotify has a bunch of playlists that are available that you can listen to, but also my friends have playlists. And so they shared them with me. And that was from a friend's playlist.
Nice. And do you find yourself listening to that song at a particular time, or is it just when it's on, it's on?
I like it. I listen to it in the shower a lot. Like I have a playlist that I listen to in the shower of EDM that kind of keeps me moving in the shower. I hate taking showers. I feel like they're a waste of time and they frustrate me. Like I don't like getting wet and then having to get dry again. Like,
Fuck you, shower.
I'd rather just stay dry. Like it seems like a waste of time.
It's right. It's like, okay, so we could totally nerd out about the whole showering thing because I love that whenever I watched, I felt so fucking vindicated, validated, I guess is really the better term. I felt so goddamn validated when I watched Adam Ruins Everything when he talked about hygiene and he straight said like, yeah, like you really don't need to shower every day. Well, not everybody does. Now there are some people, if they happen to sweat more or something like that, you may need to, but I don't. Like I don't sweat much and I'm one of those people that I have totally pulled that off. Like it's fine. Like granted, if I go for a run or something, obviously I take a shower like after I go for a run. I've sweated a lot. But for the most part, if you're not doing much or if you're just sitting in an office and the most you did was put on deodorant and spritz a little perfume on yourself, like you might not need one that day.
I'm really into what I call heavy hygiene.
Oh, please tell me more.
I mean, you wash your hands real good, like up to your elbows. You, you wash your pits and like put on new deodorant and put some moisturizer on your face, and you are fresh as the
right. Like there's some spots that you could kind of hit, and you're mostly fine because that would be the parts that are doing things like anything that's say like a mucus excreting organ, like to be as gross as I can about it. They exist on our body and we should totally clean those like on the regular. But like it's not like my skin excretes things constantly. Right. Like to that level to necessitate that. Like I'm not some kind of tree frog that I got scared and suddenly I need to go take a shower or something.
And I do change my clothes at least once a day and usually like 3 times a day. So, I'm not like, anyway, I just think about like the olden times, they didn't have running water. They weren't taking showers every day. They were lucky to get to clean themselves off and like have hot water to wash their hands with. So we don't have to take a shower every day. But when I do, so to try to coax myself in the shower, I listen to music I like in the shower.
I do think that's funny though. Cause yeah, like you can also, there's other things too, by the way, like Ayurvedically, they don't always shower every day because they do something called dry brushing and that will slough off a lot of the dry skin. So sometimes they don't every few days, but actually like take a hot shower. So I totally get it though, because I am one of those people like, oh my God, I fucking know I need to. Like, and it's not that I'm a gross person, it's because I'm not a gross person that I know I need to and I do it. But I totally get that thought.
And me, I'll take baths all day. I love baths.
Yeah, but you wouldn't want to take a shower.
I will do it if I have to, but if I have a chance to just soak in a hot bath, I'm going to soak in a hot bath.
See, I
Like
wouldn't do it every day though.
I would. Fuck that. I
Oh,
normally
see.
do.
Yeah, he'll take 2 or 3 in one day if he's like not feeling well, because it's really a source of comfort and just nice feelings.
I
Hmm.
get it. I get it. Because I like it like when I do have like every now and then, or if I've had like a really long run, or if I've got something sore. Part of it is like filling our bathtub is a fucking labor of love right now, and it takes forever. So I don't have the patience for that shit like half the time. I think I'm with Obs on this one. It's like a lack of patience for some reason, for the idea that I can't just like step into a machine with all the disinfecting lights and just like be good and then go lay down or something.
All right. What is your number 3?
My number 3 is I Put a Spell on You by Bette Midler. So mine are going to start taking a turn now, because you see, I'm a haunter, and this is just once you have been bitten by the haunted house bug and you get to a level where you really do feel like you are a haunter, it just infects your entire life, and you will like your haunted house or haunted theme songs, whatever, all year round. I Put a Spell on You by Bette Midler is the perfect example of that. I had jokingly said for our Christmas episode that, if you watch Hocus Pocus on Christmas, then that's a Christmas movie. And that half came because talking to my stepdaughter, I was bummed that we didn't get to watch Hocus Pocus for Halloween this year. So I'm going to take it and we're going to watch it for Christmas. But I love Bette Midler's version of this song. It is fantastic. She is not just talented like vocally, but she is such an excellent performer. And it's like you can have people who have amazing voices who are not performers like to that level, the very, out there performance type. Like I think like sometimes opera singers, while they have very beautiful voices, they're not always acting anything out. There's not the performance to it. And like when I think the other way around, people who are more performers and not like necessarily the most technical singers, I do think of Marilyn Monroe. And she actually owned that about herself. She was, yeah, and she was a performer. She performed the shit out of anything she did. And she wasn't like completely out of tune. So it worked for her. Sorry, Tim, go ahead.
I mean, Bette Midler started off as a musician. I mean, she, started out
in the 70s, wasn't she sort of a rock and roll, and then she moved into theater and Broadway, and
then transitioned. Yeah, but she started off, in fact, in her backing band, Katie Seagal from Futurama and Married with Children was one of her backup singers.
Wow, had no fucking idea. Love that.
Yep.
That's so cool.
The more you know.
All right. Number 3 is a song the professor helped teach me to play on the guitar. It is from the Traveling Wilburys. It is called End of the Line. It's the primary voices you hear on it are George Harrison and Tom Petty, but Jeff Lynne and Roy Orbison still contribute in there. As far as a song,
so does Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan sings a verse.
Okay. I forgot that one, but I thought he sang along with, I don't know. But anyway, good simple song to play on the guitar. And just not many chords to play, and just it was really fun learning to play it. And obviously it's on this list, number 3, because I listened to it a lot because I wanted to play it nice.
Nice.
So that was my number 3. What is your number 2?
My number 2 is yet again a EDM song, and it is Fire for You. So this is a really good one. It's by the Cannons, and it's just a really like sexy groove, I'd say, about how they're on fire for you. So it's a good one to listen to.
Okay.
I'm on fire for you. It goes like that.
Okay.
So would that be your karaoke song? Like if you did karaoke, would you do it?
I'm sure it would not be available. So when I go to karaoke, I look for songs that I know, and I just have to do classics because none of the music that I listen to on a daily basis shows up in karaoke, because I really like singer-songwriters, indie alternative, and EDM, which are not really
Yeah, because like most places,
karaoke
like
songs.
you can get like there's this Carafun or whatever that a
I
lot of places have started
have
to
it.
use it. Oh, you have it, cool. And I know like some you can use it professionally too. Like somehow the bars can pay a license fee and be able to use it like for karaoke in bars. Like they have that aspect to them. So what's nice is those places that do that, you do have more of a selection of music. I do know postmodern jukebox is on there. So I don't know if you've searched Carafun, but it might have
I'll
some of
have
the
to.
ones. I was surprised that postmodern jukebox was anywhere. And what was funny was that was the time I did sign up for karaoke and I was still dressed up as a flapper and I was gonna do Gangster's Paradise, like the 1920s version that they did. And the wait was just so long, we wound up leaving. I was so tired because I'd done a show. But yeah, I was surprised it was on there. So maybe you really busted it out there, and we've been talking a lot about karaoke. So
All right. What is your number two?
my number two is from my Haunters mix again, and it is Sweet Transvestite by Tim Curry. I love that song. It is one that gets me super fucking jazzed, and it's been on my haunted house playlist every year. Like I almost kind of end up making a new one every year I've done haunted house, and it goes back to the first time I made them was because I would warm up my voice by singing while I did my own SFX, because it is smart to warm up your voice, especially if you're doing like character voices or doing anything where you're going to mess with that area back here, right? Like the raspy, anything that's like raspy or messes with that. You need to warm up really well and be careful doing those voices. So I would sing like still like amazingly enough, like Sweet Transvestite and stuff like that. So this is wound up on those lists like every year that gets me pumped. Normally while I'm doing like what I call people chess, which is as I get to know my different actors and haunters, I move them around. So it's literally sitting and being a nerd in front of a spreadsheet and looking at like a big chart of where their placements are in the haunt. And so I will often be listening to stuff like Sweet Transvestite and pretty much the whole Rocky Horror theme and stuff like that. Like Schaefer the Dark Lord pops up. I'll get into some of my honorable mentions later that are also on this list. And I really think they're the top of the list because not only do I listen to this a lot personally when it's fun, I do sometimes listen to my haunted house mix when I go running too, because it's really kind of fun to run to stuff like this.
I remember watching Rocky Horror on the big screen for the first time, and like, when Tim Curry enters the screen and starts singing that song, like he took over. I mean, just like god damn, one hell.
I loved him in that movie. I still remember the first time I saw it on a big screen, I thought too much thigh. Oh, I can see too much of his thigh. But now it's like I love it. I love it more. I'd learned, I guess, at one point, doing Rocky Horror was a little bit of a sticking his finger to his parents. Um, and he had always like he'd wanted to do musical theater. And I think if I'm remembering correctly, like one of his parents or possibly both like didn't really support the musical theater aspect of it all.
Hmm.
And so like doing musical theater and as Frankenfurter was just like a double like deuces to it all. So I don't know. And he's really great. He still like tries to he was actually going to go to the Haunters convention that got canceled. I'm pretty sure it's the same year, but he was going to go to the Haunters convention that I wound up not going to,
Mhm.
just to sign for his character in Rocky Horror. So it's not like one of those that he regrets doing or anything. It's something that he still seems to be very proud of, which makes it a really cool movie.
Oh yeah, and when Fox did a live version of the Rocky Horror Picture Show, he actually came back as the narrator for the story. So yeah, I mean he's one of those like classically trained actors that embraces genre.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
He's a very no regrets. He kind of put a little bit of him into every character. And yeah, it's such a fun song.
Yep. All right, my number two comes from a movie as well. It is from the legendary John Williams, and I actually have a tattoo of what the movie's about. It is the prelude and main title march to Superman. And just it was like Superman. There aren't many movies that can get me to like weep uncontrollably. This is one of them, you know, just from the very first start when the movie screen opens up and you have the kid opening the comic book and then the music kicks in. Like, this is, in my opinion, John Williams' best score. It is done by the London Symphony Orchestra. Just movie music at its best. And, you know, who would have thought like a piece of music could still encapsulate everything that's right about a comic book character too. I mean, it speaks to John Williams' talent as a musician to be able to make something so iconic for a character that in the 70s was still considered something for kids, you know, and that is quite the achievement, and that's why I still listen to it. And this is another one of those that, you know, if I'm going out, is on repeat, because again, Superman has confidence, I don't. So.
Nice.
All right, so we are at number 1, but we also have some honorable mentions here. So
that's right,
Professor.
I have some honorable mentions I'd like to talk about before I let you know what my first song was, because it is another EDM, very widely unknown song. So I had some people on my list that I listened to pretty consistently, which wasn't surprising. I think the things that I wanted to share were Louis the Child and Mimba are 2 EDM groups that I have been listening to a lot that I really like. And I was able to see them both at the Edgefield this year, which was really fun. So I love that they're on the list. Cypress Hill, I Want to Get High plays around the Friends Talking Nerdy studios on a regular basis. So that
420, you know,
about 420 every night. No, about 520 every day. And
yeah, 20 seconds. I don't know.
I think Doja Cat was a big artist for me this year, and certainly the song that she did with where is it? The song that she did, Hot Girl Summer, was Nicki Minaj, Megan Thee Stallion, and Ty Dolla. That was a very 2021 song, Hot Girl Summer. I don't know if you guys heard that one.
Oh, I listen to it all the time. No,
yeah.
Nope, I don't think that one crossed my radar.
And then finally, Doja Cat's song, Boss Bitch. I don't know if you've heard that song, but if you're ever feeling like you need a little extra, you ought to put it on. Because I'm a boss bitch and sometimes I got to sing about it.
And this will be on the master playlist. All the music we are talking about here, including the honorable mentions, will be on the playlist. So if you at home wish to be a boss bitch,
just wait, hear the song, and then you will be transformed. It's that good of a song.
Into a boss bitch. Maybe I need some boss bitch energy is what I need in my life.
I think everybody does, really. So that leads me to my number 1 song for the year, the song that I have listened to more on Spotify than any song. It is on my shower playlist. So that just goes to show I have been showering, even though I haven't wanted to. And that is Heat Waves. Heat Waves by Glass Animals and Diplo.
Yay, shower song gets an honorable mention. So is this just anything else with it? Like that you wanted to make it an honorable mention? Is it just like a really kick-ass song?
It's a really kick-ass song. I started listening to it at the beginning of the summer and it was...
This is her number 1. This is not a part of her honorable.
Oh, this is the number 1. That's right.
Yeah, Heat Waves by Diplo and Glass Animals. So I heard this song on a Spotify mix that was just random. And I loved it so much. And I heard it at the beginning of the summer and I just played it all summer because some of the lyrics are heat waves. It's about how I want to be with you in the summer heat and in July, and sort of thinking about someone you love in the middle of the night in July when you're all hot and sweaty. And it was just perfect for the summer.
Nice. Summer sweat song.
I love the summertime. So.
Like a boss bitch, right?
Like
a boss bitch.
Owning that summer like a boss bitch.
All right. What are your honorable mentions, Reverend? And then your number 1?
So my honorable mentions, I just wanted to throw it out there, even though like I probably couldn't name the song, I do know why I listened to it. And I wanted to at least mention that I do this because I know I'm not the only anxious driver in the world, but I do like to listen to lo-fi beat stations when I am driving, especially because it was a little bit more, I noticed how more aggressive it is here than Oregon. And so I definitely listened to it a lot more. But this one song that came up, and I think it's one that I ended up repeating a lot, is called Miles Away by Kazam. So lo-fi has no words. It is lo-fi music. That's kind of part of its point. Just really chill music that I like to listen to when I drive. So I was going to throw that one on there just to encourage some chill listens. And then my last two honorable mentions are kind of related, in essence of like why I like them. They're both from my haunted house mix, but they are both probably the two most dark humored songs that I listen to.
Mhm.
And that is Gold Locks by MC Frontalot is one of them. And that is so he's a nerdcore artist. And Goldilocks is like this very morbid retelling of like Goldilocks from like the bear's perspectives. And it like has this kind of sweet voice. And she talks about, I'll walk into your house like I'm entitled to or something. And it's like, but then she starts saying stuff, then I'll start gnawing on your little bear cub's arms and your feet. And like she gets really creepy and into it when she starts talking about like eating these bears that are a family. So I like that song a lot. It's creepy, it's dark, I dig it. And then the other one that's also creepy, dark, and dig it. It is one of my favorite Halloween season songs. It's also doubles as my favorite Easter song, and it is called Night of the Living Christ by Schaefer the Dark Lord. If you are offended by things that pick fun at religion, I would not recommend listening to this song. But if you can take those things with good humor, or if you're not really particularly religious or you find religious humor great, this song is the one for you. He makes some very awesome points. I actually would kind of encourage you to listen to it because I think it's kind of clever. He talks about basically, in the beginning, it's very uplift and sweet and nice, right? And it's talking about, you may believe that he is our savior. You can believe that he will still rise again, like kind of talking about like the ways that the different churches kind of think about Jesus, like that he was our savior, that he already did rise.
Right.
And then like the music turns off, like where it goes darker sounding, like going that off key. And then he says, but what's really going to happen is he's going to rise. Like he's not going to come down from a glowing light. He's going to rise from beneath, and he's going to like have crusted blood all over him and dirt in his teeth. And it turns into talking about how he's going to go and actually eat all of the Christians who claim him in name, but not in action. And he maybe name drops like the Westboro Baptist Church and talks about like these ones that this zombie Jesus is going to go after. So it's a really funny song, but also tells a good story. And that is why I definitely wanted to make sure it was on here.
There we go. So that leaves us to the number one. What is your most played song of the year?
My most played song of the year is the one that I often fantasize about maybe one day doing a flash mob, and it is also on my haunt mix. It is the Time Warp from Rocky Horror Picture Show. It ticks all of the boxes for me. It instantly puts me in a good mood when I'm in a shitty mood. It gets me motivated when I don't want to do stuff. It could probably easily, I think I've honestly played this in the shower too, because much like Professor Aubrey, I do tend to play music when showering happens because it just makes me stay in there and enjoy it longer because I like music. But yes, I love the Time Warp. Super funny. And it's not really about anything like raunchy, which, like Sweet Transvestite is. It's like an innocent song you can pretty much enjoy from there. And I love that it's got dance moves, which makes it super fun when it comes on. It came on when we did the charity ball.
Right.
So all of us were doing the Time Warp like on our cameras. So I absolutely love that song. So if you don't know what I'm talking about and you haven't watched Rocky Horror Picture, I vote that it's still fun. I knew the song before I knew the movie. A lot of people know the song before they know the movie because it does play if you go to sometimes Halloween stuff. I have heard it in public in grocery stores because it doesn't have any bad lyrics or anything sexual to it. And there is a kids bop version of it. So I would say it's mainstream enough to be enjoyable, even if you haven't seen the movie and have no interest in seeing it.
Yeah, again, I mean, I can't speak enough for like the first half of the Rocky Horror Picture Show. The second half of the movie kind of drags for me, and from people I've talked to, I guess that's a common thing. But like the time warp, yeah, how can you not be happy after hearing that song? It's like hearing like a B-52 song, like a Love Shack. That's like another song that you put on and you just can't help but smile.
Exactly. It's one of those for me. And yeah, it's totally, it begs to be flash mobbed. And one day I will figure out how to be involved in a time warp flash bomb if I don't orchestrate one myself somehow.
Gotcha. Well, let me get to my honorable mentions here. I got a few before I get to my number one. The first one is a song from the Monkees called "The Girl I Knew Somewhere," which is kind of poignant as I can't pronounce that. News came out as we recorded today that the person who wrote that song, who was in the band, Mike Nesmith, passed away, sadly. So yeah, that, I mean, as a kid I loved the Monkees, and then once I started buying albums in my 20s, fell in love with them again at that point. Just great musicians, overall real musicians, despite what people say. They're a real group and all that. But in our archives, we I am going to record a tribute episode to him. So as I'm recording this now, it hasn't happened yet, but if you hear it, it's just a few episodes back. Another one, Painkiller from Judas Priest. It is perfect car chase music. It is intense, it's loud, there's lots of screaming, and I absolutely love it. Joe's Garage from Frank Zappa, I think, is probably one of my favorite songs lately, because in a way it shows the beauty of just creating, not worrying about whether it's good, about whether the art that you're creating is good or not, because it's a story about a band that starts in a garage, and there's a part in the song to where there's a lyric is guess you only have one chance in life to play a song. It goes like, and then it cuts to just this bizarre off-key type of music, and then there's a woman yelling in the background called "Turn it down. Don't you boys know how to play any good music?" But I love that, because to me that speaks to creativity. That speaks to just, he's encouraging people that if you have an urge to create, fuck what anybody else thinks. Another one, Neon Nights from Black Sabbath, Ronnie James Dio's first album with the band. Just one hell of a good, fast song. And finally, for my honorable mentions, it's a Wyclef Jean song with The Rock called "It Doesn't Matter." And it has a good beat, but I also love it too, because like throughout most of the song, The Rock is just yelling "It doesn't matter" over and over again. So really, really fun song. I definitely encourage people to listen to that. Now, my number one this year is yet another song that I listen to, for when I go out of the house and want to get in the mood to deal with the general public. And it's from the Wu-Tang Clan. Wu-Tang Clan ain't nothing to fuck with. I absolutely love this song. And yeah, I mean, we actually reviewed this album on the show before, so if you want to hear some more detailed thoughts, you can definitely go back into the archives and listen to it. But it's definitely one of the greatest hip hop albums ever made, in my opinion, and just one hell of a great kind of posturing, but in a good way, in terms of like build yourself up, yeah, type of deal.
Yeah, I get that. That makes sense.
Yep. So that is our top five. The professor had a meeting she had to go to. That's why she had to bow out as quickly as she did. But
no worries. I'm glad we got through at least everybody's or her list for sure before she had to bounce out.
indeed, indeed. Now, as we wrap up the episode here, we want to talk a little bit about the future of Friends Talking Nerdy.
Yes, yes, there is. I've teased it a little bit as a possible project I wanted to do. And I think the way that life has been going, it's kind of really made it clear to me that this is what I want to do. And I have officially decided to turn my mental health, my life after there is life after trauma page into something more, and I am going to start a podcast on it very soon. Yay. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of me that's like a little bit like nervous and even have some anxiety built up around it, but I still kind of feel like it's ultimately what I want to do. And a lot of it, I think, is around just being nervous at starting something new.
Mhm.
And I know, Tim knows this about me. I don't know if I've mentioned it on the show. I don't typically listen to our episodes after because I think I would want to ask Tim to take down and edit something every time. And that is very much a thing about me. And then what stinks is I realize I'm going to have to listen to myself talking and be okay with actually publishing things instead of doing what I do, which is like want to pick it apart and make it better. And I'm sure, it's great. I've got Tim here to talk me through it. I'm going to be part of the Friends Talking Nerdy network, which is why Tim mentioned it's the future of this show, this network, this family, whatever you want to call it. It is very much going to be part of that. And I'm excited. I don't want it to be doom and gloom. That's something I actually was talking a lot with Tim about while I was still considering whether or not I was going to do this. I think I can cover, mental health and the things that you struggle with as somebody who lives with a traumatic background in a way that's not like going to have tears all the time.
Right.
And I'd really like to also bring other people on who, not to say that tears aren't okay. Like if they happen on the show, that's totally fucking fine. Like I tear up sometimes when I think and talk about things. That's not necessarily a reason to avoid talking about them.
Right.
And I think showing that can be really important, especially because we are dealing with a group trauma, right? Like we are all going through this pandemic. And we're not really going to know what unpacking that looks like until it's over. That's the unfortunate thing about trauma recovery is you have to end the instigating actions, and we can't just stop the pandemic right now. So there's going to be I think more people interested in ideas for self-healing and ways that you can, and not just self-healing. I want to talk to people about everything. I want to talk to people who go to therapy and how they feel like it is the way for them. I want to talk to people who have never been to therapy and kind of found their own ways of dealing with it, because I think with a lot of problems in our world, the answer isn't black and white prescriptive for everybody. Right? Like therapy, biweekly therapy is not going to help everybody. Immersion therapy, I don't know. I personally don't think that's something healthy for me to try. I haven't been talked into it ever. I don't even think there's anything to this point where I feel like I struggle with it so much that I would want to experiment with that. But, I want to be open to having conversations about that, because if people are interested in hearing other human stories and how they really deal with life and trauma, not even necessarily being a huge event. People can be traumatized and experience trauma in a lot of small ways. Right. Everybody does is kind of the point, I guess, that I ultimately want to get at with this show. And that, if you can listen to people who have dealt with kind of more intense versions of what everyday people should kind of deal with, maybe that can give some ideas. I'm a big person to say, I benefited so much from cognitive behavioral therapy that I honestly wish they taught it in a way to everybody, because I think it's insanely good and healthy to have a mental toolkit ready in how to deal with yourself when you are feeling triggered, and dealing with that within yourself instead of relying on some ability that doesn't exist to control everything out there and around you.
Right. Yeah, I'm definitely excited, and I know we've talked somewhat about your plans on the show. Now, folks at home, do not worry. That does not mean the Reverend is leaving Friends Talking Nerdy at all. And what does this mean for you, the listeners? It's not really going to mean much, because when you create a podcast and you go to a podcast provider, they provide you a space. That's all they do. And so far, what we've been doing is using the space to just give you Friends Talking Nerdy. But, with the changing what you see on your podcast provider to the Friends Talking Nerdy podcast network, that will make it to where Saturdays are going to be Friends Talking Nerdy Day. I don't know what day you decided upon for There Is Life After Trauma.
I'm not there yet. Yeah.
We'll get to that point. Because again, when we record this, it's December 10th, but it's the new year for everybody. So I mean, yeah. So I guess in a month we'll get back and talking there. Wednesday. What does this mean for Wednesdays as well? Wednesdays are still going to happen, but that's going to have a little facelift as well. The Wednesday show will no longer be Friends Talking Nerdy. It will be called Hump Day with Tim and the Professor. But what I'm really loving about this too is the fact that, like for Friends Talking Nerdy, for the work that the Reverend, myself, and the Professor have made to build up this platform, small though it may be, it's great that, we can now use it to kind of expand a little bit, offer different alternatives, because we get into serious topics here all the time, but I think there's a lot more levity to what we do at Friends Talking Nerdy than you may want to have for There Is Life After Trauma. So
right,
yeah,
and it's like, it's super clear that my nerddom really is a lot around mental health and stuff like that, right? Like, I think listening to the show, like a few episodes, even if it's not a mental health episode, I feel like my mind goes there because that's my nerd. Mm-hmm. And that was always the point of Friends Talking Nerdy, is that you can nerd out about anything. Yeah. And so I really just wanted to apply kind of how we talk, very normalizing in a sense. Like we that's one goal that we had was in the background of this show. We wanted to kind of normalize some of the discussions that friends can naturally have, like dealing with anxiety and depression and shit in their life. So it's really just more of a focused expansion on that, where we try to let it casually come up here. It's going to definitely be the theme of those shows. And so it's just learning how to have an intentional conversation about mental health. Where here, it's more having casual conversations about mental health, where it's not a sit down and talking about what exactly happened to you.
Yes, I mean, obviously you're not a licensed therapist or anything like that, so it has to be casual to a point, because you don't have those licenses and whatnot.
Exactly, because something I had considered doing was looking into life coaching, but it's just not something I'm interested in right now. I don't want to be a prescriptive person to tell people what to do. And my favorite podcasts out there are interview shows, because you can be a great interviewer and help put knowledge out there by people who do know what they're talking about and not necessarily have that knowledge. But then it's like, there are things that I am insanely knowledgeable about, like as far as some of the self-healing, some of the brain hack techniques, like we just talked about, with how you can use music to like tap into parts of your brain to kind of hack yourself out of a funk. Those are things I want to talk about. That was a music study. I actually shared that with my stepdaughter because we were talking about Billie Eilish. And I was talking about music in general. And I was like, well, here's why I wouldn't listen to her. And I am not saying, and I did emphasize, like, I'm not saying because I wouldn't, that it's bad that you do, kiddo. Right. But I try to be careful with my brain and what I put in there, right? And mental health is something she and I have talked about, like what it feels like to feel anxious and stuff. And so it's like, yeah, like if you feel anxious, I wouldn't want to listen to a song that was telling my brain sad things. So and that's like the kind of stuff I want to focus on. So if I'm covering stuff, it's more covering a study that I've read, or possibly it's like some of the great Psychology Today articles out there. Or I'm interviewing somebody about their experience and how they live now after dealing with something really bad. And I want to cover from childhood bullying to domestic abuse. I want us to learn how to talk about these things, because that's how we're going to stop them from happening.
Yes. And, I am so happy that you are taking this step. And, I'm glad that, the platform that we have built is going to be, the thing that will hopefully get this out to the world. And, I'm going to do everything I can to help make it a success. And, I'm excited by these changes too. And the fact too, that, we could be putting on a lot more content too. Obviously we want to be realistic with our schedules, but, we have this space, we're, and this is just a way to kind of expand to allow us to tackle other topics in different ways, and to give you, the audience at home, just more content.
Yeah, we want to bring in people from a wide variety of interests. And by the way, if any of our listeners do consider themselves a survivor of some such trauma, and you are comfortable talking to your friend, the Reverend Tracy, on the show, I would invite you to reach out. And it can be anonymous, by the way. I am not insisting that, people be very public with who they are. You don't necessarily need to say, I am so and so and I live here. You can talk about your story anonymously and that still be powerful for people. And that's one of the things that podcasting really kind of is awesome about for this idea is there's no like video to blur over. I don't plan on doing videos for this very reason. I'm going to keep it a true no video podcast. So I'm excited about it. So either anonymously or if you want your name out there, that's up to you. I will not push for either. So just reach out to me because that's going to be coming soon. I'm going to try to have some stuff recorded ahead of time. It's not necessarily like right in January. It might be a while, but we are now officially starting the planning on what that's going to look like.
Oh yeah, and yeah, I mean, this is very much like the pre-production stage of a movie. Once it gets to the point to where everything's recorded, we're going to promote the hell out of this. So
yep. And I won't even go into any more of why I'm going to do it because I could talk about it forever. I'm excited about it, obviously, which is where it really makes sense to just go for it and try to do it.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm excited too. I mean, I'm excited even for the rebranding of Wednesdays, turning that into Hump Day. Because I get to say hump every week on purpose. But too, it's like it can allow you to do different. Like, I can even have a more detailed show about old time radio that I could put. There's a lot you can do because again, it's a space. What we do with this space is up to us, and hopefully you at home are enjoying the results. But yeah. That's another year in the books.
Yay, we done it.
Yes.
And there's other stuff that's probably going to be happening too. Who knows? We'll probably come up with ideas every now and then and rattle them off. It's really funny. Somebody wants me to create, and this is another thing Tim knows I'm working on personally, is I am looking into becoming a quiz master for trivia, in essence, creating my own quizzes instead of working under an umbrella because I was kind of reading about some of those and I think I would just rather do my own, especially it's at the VFW. They already kind of want entertainment. So it's nothing that I have to actually audition for. I could probably just tell them like, hey, let me do this. And so I can be experimental while actually like having some fun and doing some trivia. And it was actually the Mr. Reverend was the one that had the random idea of having you host a virtual one for the Friends Talking Nerdy, or like it being the same, like me actually just broadcasting it while I'm doing it, or I record like the questions and stuff, but it would make more sense as a broadcast, I think, because you'd want somebody to man who's answering. But so who knows, maybe we will figure out some way to do some kind of virtual trivia show.
Yeah, that would definitely be cool. Yeah, I mean, it would need some planning, but that could easily be pulled off. I mean, with technology being what it is, I don't see why that couldn't be done like with a simple iPad or something like that,
There's apps for it even for doing virtual trivia and stuff like that. So as long as you're making up your questions and stuff, it's probably really easy to host. So, stuff like that. I think we're going to have a lot of fun this year. I am now no longer in this weird hiatus of, am I moving and when am I moving and am I going to have a job and what's that job going to look like hours wise? Like now that I have more answers, I think I'm going to be able to do more of the creative things I wanted to do. I'm still working on writing the book, which is again another inspiration for the podcast because that is a story about how I got CPTSD. And if you understand anything about CPTSD, it's not a good story. It's sad. But it's still something that I want to work on because I think it needs to be said. But so what do you have like outside of the podcast? Do you have any other things that you're just, even if you're not for sure doing them, that you're thinking about doing?
Well, I mean, right now I am in the process of rewriting my first book. Like my first book, I love the idea, but I will be the first to admit, like the execution wise, it's a first book for a reason. But like I said, I like the story enough, I like the idea enough that I think it does need to be revisited. And so far, it's been going really good. So that is going to be the big thing. And of course, the biggest thing for me is just finishing up school as quickly as possible, so I can, have a job that is not retail.
Yeah. And huge shout out for anybody just looking for an excuse for resolution or something to do. we're kind of in the middle of a worker shortage right now. So just throwing it out there that if you are in a job that you didn't like before all of this started happening, this is actually kind of the time to go out there and see if you can change it up. Like Tim, awesome, able to go to school, and that so kicks ass. And there's actually a lot of people that have done that. And I know there's also people out there that unfortunately don't have that privilege or availability or ability, either financially or, working or whatever. But there are other ways to get into careers, and this might be a time to look. It's amazing. My favorite thing is still going through a temp agency. You can get intro into office work, and I would take office work over retail any day. I just don't really respect how they treat their workers there. Like it's hard. And I think honestly, it's going to take an exodus of workers for them to understand that you won't stand for it anymore. I think it's bullshit that companies still get away with closing down stores when they smell unionization in the air. Like it's absolutely ridiculous that we don't have unions fighting for as many of our retail workers as we could. Who's to say if we should, but we could have them helping fix some of this. So it's okay. I will continue to figure out how to shop for things. If those, like, I don't go to McDonald's, especially if you're working at a place like that. Like, I don't know, maybe you go work at the mom and pop shop, especially if they're offering more, because places kind of are that can right now. So that's where I was kind of getting with it.
Yeah, and with stuff like hamburgers, I mean, should you really be supporting a corporation like McDonald's when spending maybe $2 or $3 more in a local burger joint, you're going to get a much better burger. Having said that, there are some good things, and there is a Wednesday episode that we've already recorded that will come out. That's when you're listening to this is already out, where we do talk about unions a bit, and I am seeing some very positive signs. Like, there's the first Starbucks in the country that's unionized. Starbucks is unionized.
Oh, I didn't know they unionized. I did hear that they were talking about it and it was going to be a decision soon. So that's good on them. But yeah, so either way, it's just it's something to think about with the new year. If you're looking for that kind of change and you don't like where you're at, and especially if you're in a retail or a fast food type job, especially one of the big chain jobs, there's other options out there. I'm super pleased with where I wound up, because there was part of me that thought about going to retail, and I don't blame you at all for your comment about just wanting to be done, because I've seen how they're treated. Like as a customer, I notice I've stepped in situations. I think I talked about it on the show, like especially early on in the pandemic, I had seen like one cashier just being treated like garbage. And I wound up saying something to stop it because it was just uncomfortable. And I felt bad for them. Like, dude, like stop. So I definitely didn't want to do that. So I'm glad that I wound up kind of in the situation I did. Temp agency, found a really nice little office job. So
yeah, I mean, I got plenty of horror stories in retail, and like when you see like a grown man in a suit that's probably a lawyer or an accountant yelling at a 20-year-old girl who's trying to sell him like an Apple Pencil, it's like, no, you're a scumbag, dude.
Oh yeah. And it's just, I see it a lot, and I saw it a lot before, and it just hasn't gotten better. So yay, Starbucks. So I guess maybe if you're into that, or I guess is it just that one that unionized, or all of them?
No, it wasn't every single store. It was one particular location that did it, which tells me more than likely, like they voted to unionize, but that doesn't mean they've, spoken with the Starbucks Corporation to get like a contract yet. So it wouldn't shock me if all of a sudden that store had to be closed down for renovations or something.
That's what Walmart does. Just take a page out of Walmart's book. They just close down stores. There's so many of them, it doesn't even hurt them. It's so sad. I don't know if they still do it. I know that was a practice they were doing. But yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, on that note. Well, we thank you all for listening to us again for another year. And 2022, by the way, I forgot to mention, 5 years of the show.
Wow, yeah, that's significant.
Yeah, so
good job. There's a lot of podcasts that don't make it. So there's like way more that don't last, like just out of the habits of the creator than last.
I think
so good job.
I think the big thing to keep in mind, especially since you're starting up your show too, is that you will make mistakes. There will be episodes that you're just going to be like, ugh, but when you commit, when that final edit is done and it is uploaded, it is out there for the world. Just you can't be so hyper vigilant on making it absolutely perfect because, you know, one, you're going to miss something regardless, and two, it's 9 times out of 10 too, the things that you find or I find, you know, when I'm editing that annoy me, people probably don't even really notice that much, you know.
Yeah, basically, I do realize that I am my own worst critic and I'm really hard on myself sometimes. So it's something hey, maybe this is like my way that I will finally get over that.
In a lot of ways it's helped me because, you know, I've been like that too, like with books in the past that I've tried to write. Like you would get a few chapters in and then just whatever happens and you just end up not writing anymore. But as long as you're just continuing to put out content, you will get better. To tie back into something I talked about in a previous episode, it's like the Beatles documentary Get Back, that's on Disney Plus right now. You know, like they showed the importance of what practice can do. You know, the more you practice, the more you put out content, the more content you make, the better you're just going to get, period.
Exactly. And what's nice is with the podcast, which I mean, I'm still kind of playing with the name. I think I'm going to stick it with, because I don't necessarily want to rebrand like my Facebook page and stuff. So I'm going to see how that all works out as we get into the planning phases in January. But what's nice is because I'm not going to be necessarily covering like the topical news, I can actually have plenty in queue. So I think that will help a lot. So if I am, because being somebody who has CPTSD, and that's kind of the point, is I'm going to be very aware of that on the show, there might be a week where I can't talk myself into doing it. And part of the success of it is being honest with myself and maybe preparing for that.
And you're part of a network. Just because you may take a week or two or a month off doesn't mean there's not going to be other content that's going to be here. And even if you do have to take that week or two off, we're still going to be reminding people to listen to the archives because, we are in this together to, help each other out. We want this to succeed, so
5 years of shows, there's plenty in the archives. If we miss a day now, there's no excuse.
There you go. But thank you all again for listening to us for yet another year. And we hope you listen to us for as long as we have the urge to keep creating for you. So stay tuned to this podcast space. There's going to be some interesting stuff coming your way. With that, we bid you adieu.
And a happy new year.
Subscribe to Friends Talking Nerdy on iTunes, the Google Play Music Store, as well as Spotify. Remember to support Friends Talking Nerdy on Patreon. Goodbye, darling.